Hello and welcome to the Book by Book, a podcast about the odd book or two you've read. I'm your host Scott and I'm not alone, Toby's here too. This episode we're talking about Song of Kali by Dan Simmons. It's a fairly light to mid spoiler level warning, so if that's okay with you, continue on and I'll see you on the other side. Toby, have I got an intro for us? Is it related to the book we're talking about? No,
probably not.
I've been holding on to this now. Like I got it a few days before your holiday, so like 2-3 weeks now. I thought I could just do a little, a little tiny review before review on the new Coca-Cola with coffee drink.
Whoa!
And what I have in my hand is literally a dark blend of Coca-Cola with coffee. Cold.
That
obviously.
is wizardry right there. We don't have that in this country.
I don't know. I don't remember where I got it. It might have been, there's a few stores here which extort prices up and get like, for me, candy from the UK, which I can't normally get here. And
wow, you get UK.
a lot of like Japanese candy, you know,
yes.
Like Cheetos with English tea flavor or something. Let's just give it a go. Remind it's
so
like 9:30 in the morning for me. And on Sunday.
Coke, you also have a cup of coffee to go with it, don't you, to wash it down with?
So sort of, yeah. I just realised that's probably over caffeinated.
Yeah, you're going to be like
listening to our.
Have you tried it before? No, he's saying.
Well, you get the buzz, the fizziness.
Well,
you know what? That's not bad.
Really? Does it taste of coffee?
It's a smooth blend of the two.
Yeah.
I'm going to say the Coke takes over the coffee flavour. So it's more like, if I didn't know what this was, I would say that's a Coke. Is it a nutty Coke? What is that? I wouldn't pick up the coffee. But this is smoother than a regular Coke. I was expecting to hate this and do a spit take. Hang on.
Wow. It's like having Coca-Cola in an unwashed coffee cup.
Kind of. I'm sure if you're listening, guys, we can help with your marketing. I'm sure that's how they want to advertise it. It's just surprisingly smooth, and it sort of does something to the bubbles. I'm not a Coke fan because purely of that aftertaste stick to your teeth. Like I do like a Coke, I can have a Coke, but I need to go rinse my mouth out afterwards because I can feel the attack on my teeth.
Okay.
On some sort of chemical. I'm giving this a thumbs up. Whoa, I was not expecting that.
To follow this up, I had my first ever, green Red Bull. Do you know what green is in the Red
green
Bull
tea?
world? No, it is cactus fruit.
Oh,
flavored Red Bull. Dinging.
What's the flavour? Just cactusy.
Yeah.
Good.
I don't know. Never.
Can you put your tongue on that flavour?
No, I can't. But it was really, really nice. Definitely my favourite Red Bull. I've tried a few now. Tried like the tropical one, orange one.
Oh, I don't think I've seen any. I don't think it's made it this far yet, or I haven't.
Yeah, we've got a few over here. We've got watermelon, coconut, berry, but this was cactus fruit.
Are weird ones. Coconut good? I don't like the sound of coconut. Like a fresh coconut on a beach where they've chopped it off, super nice.
Yeah.
Coconut water in a can. Something's weird about this. It's never quite as refreshing as you think it's going to be.
No.
Put bubbles in there. I don't know. Maybe I'll be wrong.
All levels are wrong.
Coffee.
But yeah, cactus fruit Red Bull. That can go on the as recommended by the Book by Book.
Thumbs up by the Dogearedpagecafe. Serving now, the Dogearedpagecafe. Toby, I have been reading Song of Kali by Dan Simmons. Okay. Do you know Dan Simmons? I think you're going to say no, but then I'm going to tell you about some stuff which makes you go, oh yeah, kind of in that case.
It rings a little bell.
It might have been me texting you saying, have you heard of Song of Kali? I'm reading this now. One of his hit books is called The Terror, a fictional account on a historical event about a sort of Mary Celeste ship that sailed north into some sort of Icelandic tundra and sort of disappeared or came back empty. It was like an AMC hit show.
It's just I thought I'd heard about it. Yes.
Because it was sort of like some of the makers of The Walking Dead because it's AMC, but Game of Thrones. It was like hyped as like this new good thing, and it's been on my book list for years. I didn't watch it, and also I thought, well, if it's anything like Game of Thrones, I've got like 10 years and 10 seasons to do so. Turns out it's just a mini series where they sum up the entire book in one. But I've still got the book somewhere, and it seems like a great winter read.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
He's also written like sci-fi fantasy staple, Hyperon and Fall of Hyperon.
I have heard of Hyperon. Yes.
I think they're like a play on like the Canterbury Tales.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. It's sort of written in these cantossy sort of type things, and it's like sort of like I think, you know what, I should just stop speculating because I might be completely wrong. But he's done it before. I believe there's these books called like Olympias or something, where he's taken like Greek myths, and he's bunged them on like sci-fi planets with like gods and laser guns. This is none of those. If you Google this, I'm pretty sure one of the first things I'll come up with is this xenophobic? Is this racist? There's quite a big debate. This is his first ever novel written.
Right.
And it's written in the 80s, 85, published in 85. And I think something to note is that in his youth, Dan Simmons did go to India and Calcutta, which I imagine would have been because of what, like, I don't know how long it takes to write a first book. So I'm going to just speculate here. It was the late 70s. That's important because this book is set in Calcutta. And the reason I'm saying, if you Google it, is this book xenophobic? Because it's really easy to see why people would say that, no matter what side you fall down. And no, I don't think so. The people who say it definitely is, you can't really argue them.
Yeah.
Let me read you the first page. It's a horror. Sorry, let me.
Cool.
Book. It's Dan Simmons' first book. It's Song of Kali. It won some awards. I don't know about the Bram Stoker Award, but it definitely won some kind of awards. And it's like a gothic horror.
Okay.
No one else is using the word gothic, so
no.
30, 40 years later, I'm gonna put it out there. But I'm sure there are. What am I talking about? It's just not written anyway. It just says like, hard horror, and it is. Yeah. It's definitely a horror.
I feel like it's been a while since we reviewed a horror on this channel, considering we read Stephen King a lot.
Yeah, we do a lot of King, but we don't do a lot of horror. I think that's just a statement on his maturity as I don't want to refer to him as elderly, but as the most mature he's ever been.
Seasoned.
Yeah. He'll dip into supernatural. Let's not talk about King. King's coming up, don't worry. Let me read to you the first sort of page. Some places are too evil to be allowed to exist. Some cities are too wicked to be suffered. Calcutta is such a place. Before Calcutta, I would have laughed at such an idea. Before Calcutta, I did not believe in evil. Right, this is off the bat. It's like he is not happy with Calcutta.
No, he's that's a slight if ever I've heard one.
Mm-hmm. Let me get like a brisk review of the plot. There's so much fun stuff, and the sort of sum up at the end is great, but I don't know if I want to go spoiler heavy. I don't know if it's something you would ever want to read, or we just haven't done
it's a horror. I'm always down
for
reading a horror.
All right then, I will keep it spoiler free. It is a quick read. I did sort of pound through this. It's not too long, just under 300 pages.
Okay.
And it does mostly move brisk when it moves. So this British guy, and his name is Robert Luzak. Luxak. I think I talked about this with Elantris. Do you ever read a name, but it's like, that's a funny word, so I'll make up how to say it in my head. Yeah. And every time you're just like, Lucy, but actually somewhere deep inside, it's not. You're just making it easier for yourself. This is one of those. That's my little sort of Jerry Fine gyro.
I think the history of tractors in Ukraine, that one, and then she did a sequel called The Caravans, or a sequel, another book, and that had names in it that were unpronounceable in my head. So I just went blah, 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 blah.
You just give them nicknames, which is probably what we'll do. The amount of times we say the guy, the hat guy, the gun guy, the bad guy, I just call him Robert. We'll skip out those names. It's like he works for like, I don't know, Harper's Magazine. And he's like a specialist in Indian poetry. And when a poet seemingly rocks up in India, who's supposedly been missing, presumed dead for 10 years, called M. Daz, it's like, yo, we have to jump on this. Like a poet, he's come back from the dead, or where's he been? Supposedly there, all the reports are sort of spurious and like not mystical, but like there's no first-hand account of a man saying, I have seen him. It's a report of a report, and he's putting new stuff out there. you're not our first choice, but everyone else says no one wants to go to Calcutta. And the book is set in the 70s. Historically, there is like reports of Calcutta being very chaotic and catastrophic at this stage, despite the British rule. I think it's one of those cities that sort of blew up in population without infrastructure.
Yeah.
So he has an Indian wife who grew up, I don't think it's Calcutta, but it's India. No, it's not Calcutta, because she doesn't speak, I believe, Bengali, the language of Calcutta.
Okay.
I was going to bring this up after, but I can just do it now and break it through to break up my storytelling in case I do go on for flipping ages and beat by beat of the storytelling. I've been to Bangalore. I've been to India around the 2010s.
Right.
I was not in Calcutta. I was in Bangalore, which is, I think they call the tech city.
Mm-hmm.
I was there for work. They put me up in a nice sort of fancy hotel.
I remember this.
Probably more expensive than I could have afforded. I was there for like a month. Maybe I went again a few months later for another month. It's a while ago now. It is a crazy country stroke city. I literally came out of like, hey, what did you think? I'm like, it's a love-hate relationship. There's some stuff about it which are just crazy and hard to sort of accept and take in. You know, you are going to go for a drive and you are going to see like extremely poor people, like dirt poverty, like sleeping in the gutter, just washing in like sort of like pale water found on the side of the street and like hard begging. But the people there are also super nice and friendly. It's like I said, it's super love-hate. It's a crazy, vibrant place. I got to take a bit of time off there. So I did take a weekend in like Goa and some nearby cities. If you're not a fan of bustling streets, you're going to find it hard there. I guess what I'm getting at is that this was 2010 in Bangalore, the tech city, I believe they call it. So I can't imagine Calcutta in the 70s. So it's going to be a hard one for me when it's like, yo, this book is xenophobic, because none of the locals really come out good.
Okay.
And we meet a whole bunch, and it is even the ones that start off good are like, oh, they didn't turn out so good. In fact, arguably the nicest ones turn out to be the worst ones. Every sort of police politician we kind of crumble into is sort of hinting at that sort of blase to the pain of the people, and was probably corrupt. But and a lot of reviews just say, what happened to him? What happened to him in Calcutta to make him hate us so much? Like I said, when the opening line is, I don't believe in like nuclear bombs, or we should nuke Calcutta. So what he also has is like a 7-month-old baby, and he's not sure about taking his wife, but the people are like, yo, she's going to translate for you. You know, everything is paid for. We're putting you up in a hotel. She can sort of go by, she can take a drop into her family, which is, again, isn't Calcutta, forget where, make a trip out of it, basically pick up the poems, investigate. If you can meet him. If not, you've got a story to write anyway, because, there's just got to be something there. We're a poetry magazine. You're an Indian poetry specialist. Now's your time to shine. Come on, how often does this happen? It's a horror, and he has a 7-month-old baby. You never get good vibes from that. But you're sort of like, okay, I don't know much about Dan Simmons, but like Stephen King, it's like, how raw was he willing to go in his youth compared to now? How dark can he go? We've done a Cujo review. We all know about Salem's Lot, for example, so we know what he can do. Doesn't mean he always will, but you're always keeping that in mind in the story. Like, oh, he could flip this and have a dark ending, because he's not unprone to do it. So they rock up. I guess we start getting instances of like he tips like a baggage handler like, I don't know, 20 rupees. And he's sort of giving it to like, I don't know, like someone more official to give to the baggage handlers, I think. And I know this is too much. Just give them 5, because it's that thing of like, what you've given them there is like £200. I don't know. I guess that thing of like, you're going to rock their world. And even with the 5, people start storming the bus. Like all the poor people, as it were, who are sort of crowding the bus, all the other porters just start climbing the bus. And there's like a guy with like a burnt face, and he's got no tongue, like pressing his face up against the glass before they have a.
Oh gosh!
And it's just a little hint of like, hey, the city can be chaotic. Get to grips with it. I guess something to state is that this story is written from first person of Robert after the complete events. This is him.
Retrospect.
Which is an argument to why why he's very angry at Calcutta and why he hates it, because he's been through a horror story and it is horrific. That is one argument to make about it's just a horror where a guy hates a place.
What type of horror is it? Is it supernatural horror? Is it
Toby,
a body horror? Is it? I'm going to get to that.
Is to be discussed.
Okay.
So they rock up in the hotel. They meet some types, some shady but helpful types. Like he gets a sort of, hey, I'm sent here by a friend. I'm just going to be like your go-to guy, your guide for the city. And he's quite. You can picture him like with the sunglasses and a sort of white suit-ish. That's not a visual description of him that's in the book. That's just that, like sort of like smarmish. They're gonna need someone who knows under the counter ways to get through some of the adventures, sort of thing. But it's like, we're polite to him, but I don't like or trust him. But he's gonna get the job done. There's a woman who's like, I'm the niece of the supposed missing dead poet. Is it true? Like, well, fuck, we're going to ask you. And she kind of becomes friends with the wife. The wife gets weirdly, not sidelined, but throughout the book, he just, despite the fact he dragged her out there to like be the translator. As I said, she doesn't speak Bengali. Here's what blew my mind in my time out in India in the 2010s. It's not a unified language in the whole of India. I did not know that.
Okay,
people from the south are not necessarily able to talk to people in the north. Everyone was speaking English when I was in the office because that's kind of the common language that they all know. That kind of blew my mind. I've met some northerners who are so northern I couldn't understand what they were saying.
Yeah.
But when
like
they
Wales,
slowed down a bit, yeah, right. That was just a crazy fact. I think maybe a lot of people do know that, but anyway. No. So instantly, it's like, you can't meet him. It's like, oh, why not? It's like, he doesn't want to be met. We represent his people. He's not going to meet you. That's that. So he's like, okay, I'm just give me the poems. I'm going to literally go home tomorrow. We're going to get out of here. He's sort of a bit soured by that incident on the bus still. I think I guess he's getting the heebie-jeebs, I think.
Yeah, well, he's
no real reason.
By the sounds of it, he's surrounded by a place that's not particularly welcoming.
Yeah, I'm
with
gonna
people
again,
that are kind of out for themselves, but
it's just not his world, and it's not a calm world. I'm gonna make an argument here. I'm not necessarily saying this book isn't or is xenophobic. I would probably have arguments for both. Again, the ones that say it is are quite damning, and it's like, well, yeah, that is, why'd you do that? But I feel like he sort of created a sort of Kipling character. Like, this guy is very British. And I feel like his vision of India was in like the colonialism world of it. If you ever read about Kipling and stuff, it's like his or his descriptions of the Indian jungle. He's like a lord, right? And he's definitely one of those people who took like an entourage of like servants and manservants and was drinking like high tea with scones in the flipping Indian jungle. You know what I mean? Like they took their British decadence with them. And they were rich and lordly enough to be able to afford manservants and porters. And I kind of get the feeling that this guy is not that kind of, like, he's not a lord and he's not rich, but he just has this obscure view of it, which doesn't really mesh with the fact he's an expert in Indian poetry and should be so oblivious to it.
Can I just ask where these poems have come to fruition, these new ones that have turned
that's
up?
What he's there to find out.
So
there's just talk.
Where they
It's just talk of, they've got emails of, I heard about this guy who knows someone who met the poet, or there's this poetry, you have to read it. I don't have a copy, but there's a new Dazen poetry. Maybe it's an old one, but that's what you have to come and find out.
Okay, because the idea of where you say emails, but it wouldn't be emails, it would be
correspondence.
A letter, correspondence, So he's basically been told, or his editor told him to go out there.
It's a bit more than a rumor, because they have a contact But I guess, like you say, it's all letters written, and it's all like, I guess.
But there's no tangible proof that this is fact at the moment.
No, that's kind of what he's
sent
out there
a poem that's
do.
never been read before or anything like that.
No.
Okay, that's very leap of faithy, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. There's a scene where, to get the poem, he is told to take a bag of 50-cent coins, or 50, like a small denominator of coin, like a sack. Go to the train station and give it out
to people.
And given how his first encounter was, he's like, what for? He's like, this is what they, and we don't really know who the nefarious they are at the moment. So I guess we say this is what does Boot want and his people want from you. Sort of like earn it. So he goes to the station with this bag of coins, much like at the beginning, like people, the poor, as it were, cotton onto like free money that he's given away, and he's got a bag full. He sort of barely escapes with his life. He gets that it's just like,
flooded by zombies.
That horror thing of just hands pouring at even your face to get at it. He sort of has to just throw the coins and scatter them everywhere and run in the other direction. And he's like, what the F, you tossers, He's not happy. He already wasn't happy. Now he's less happy. But he does get like a bag with some poems. He's like, I am out of here. Like, he is refusing to see me. I'm off. I've got the poem. Let's get the flight home tonight. It turns out there's no reason for his wife to come because of the language thing. The daughter's actually quite fine. She's quite a happy little daughter. It worries me. Watching TV. So he goes home to the hotel. All in the meantime, there's like power outlets. He's like, certain officials are sort of meeting them because it's like, oh, you're writing an article for like Harper's Magazine. This is where we get like some character from the wife. She tells like a bit of a ghost story from her youth. And he's like, well, this is odd. Like, you're the most straight-headed person I've ever met. And he doesn't really dig into her or tease. Actually, you know what? He kind of does. He's kind of an ass, Robert.
Some gentle ribbing.
So there's one of, like, when they sort of sit down with, I think, like just a big businessman going politician type guy. It's like, what are your thoughts on Calcutta? So the wife gives her sort of story as like, I am Indian, but I'm now Americanized. I went there quite young. So she has her own unique twist of what's good and what's bad about India stroke Calcutta. Robert gives his damning report on Calcutta. And then this guy is like, I guess he's the one who's trying to be, this is where I would say, like, he's trying to put some kind of voice and reason. Just because it's a damning report of Calcutta, there's kind of a reason why, and it's a young city on the scale of things. So this guy sort of reads a passage, and it's like, the streets are disgusting and wading in filth. People are pissing out the window. Like, it's gross, gross, gross. And he's like, what do you think of this? And Robert's like, yeah, I agree. He's like, this is a poem about London. Like, I don't know, in the sort of 50s, maybe. Like, this is an old poem about London.
Yeah.
We just haven't had the advantages you guys have had. We're getting better. We're building there. I think in a bit of a hole, like an internet hole, I was sort of like, I don't know much about Kali and the goddess of question title of this, and what was Calcutta like. And suddenly I was interested, like, oh my God, what was Calcutta like in the 70s? Because this is, as fun as a book as it might be, you don't get the feeling you're getting authentic Calcutta. It was like, it's hugely over. It was that. I think this article was saying it was sort of known in our circles as the black hole. And it was at a state where it has to get better because it's at the worst it could ever be. We were talking about this when we did Norwegian Wood, when we were saying, like, we know America has its own 60s language. I've never really thought about like another country in the 60s. Did they go, when they had their revolution, what changed in the times? And the same with this book. It's like, I've never thought about Africa in the 40s. But anyway. So there's a bit of, I don't know, it's not a bit of a balance because this guy isn't really that likable a guy. Yeah. But I feel like there's some attempt to say, it's not always going to be this way.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess a bit of a debate. He goes home, he's like, let's get the F out of here. I'm booking these flights. And the guy who I said, who was just like his shady guide, Krishna, I think it was, it's like, yo, you have to come with me now. He's like, it's like 10 at night. Where are we going to go? Calcutta shuts pretty early. It's like, there's a coffee shop we have to go to. It's about Mdas. So am I meeting him? It's like, no, you just need to come. So we go, and we're in this like sort of coffee bar stroke bar, and he just meets this really jittery guy. And as we go into like a story in a story, I'm going to start skimming now because I've realized I've done that thing where I've slipped into detail. And it's this just suddenly left field story about this kid who was like a student, but he was a bit too poor. So he was a student, but living on the streets, but he was too hungry to really study. And he ended up bunking in with this kind of richer kid who just took him under his wing. And that kid sort of was like a worshipper of Kali.
Right.
I didn't know too much about Kali. I guess I do recognize the statue. Kali it's one of those things where it's the god of so many things. I don't quite know how to sum her up, but he's clearly taken, she is the god of destruction, the god of demons. I try to find like a solid review, or not review, but talk on her, because when I was on Goodreads reviewing this book, some guy was like, yo, I'm Hindu. Obviously, I had to stop reading this book because Kali is like the god of, I don't know, I can't remember, but something positive, like the patron saint of travelers, and like she eats demons.
Right.
Okay, so he's completely represented her. But then I found some other site that's like, she kind of does come from the death of destruction. She is often depicted with like a skirt of legs, a necklace of heads, and earrings of baby heads type thing. Very gruesome stuff. I believe she is the loose inspiration for Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, another film that's kind of come out as quite problematic in our times. I think famously there's a scene where they eat and it's all like live snakes and monkey brains. And people are like, India is actually like probably the highest percent of vegetarianism. They really worship animals more than a lot of other countries. What you've done there is you've just like for effect anyway. But you know, we think about Indiana Jones as we liked it as a kid, maybe, but it's the depictions of India. This kid hooks up with this rich guy, starts going to this church. And the more and more they get involved, they go to like an initiation cemetery. There, they basically go through, it's sort of super spooky. You get like sort of slimy, dark temples, a lot of shadows with like a huge statue of Kali. Yo, you want to join? Get a body and bring it back to us. See you tomorrow. So the two go on this sort of like hijinks in Calcutta in like probably the early, I guess mid 70s at this time, trying to get some corpses.
So what? Hang on, wait. Why does this guy who was wanting to get on a plane reluctantly go to a cafe?
No, so it's like you have to come because of Mdas.
Because of Mdas, who is the poetry guy.
Because of the poet.
Yeah.
And he meets this student, and the student is telling the story about he was poor. He joined this. He met this guy. The guy introduced him to the Church of Kali.
Right.
I got deeper and deeper. Now I find I'm chucked out into the night and I've got 24 hours to find a body.
Okay.
So they do, and it's pretty gross. One thing Dan Simmons shows great promise in is gruesome flipping details.
Really?
Because they go to like the morgue where they're incinerating bodies, and they find out like the morgue is like in the news recently for trouble for like doing very not dodgy, but like we can't handle all these bodies, so they're getting rid of them in other ways. This is for me like the problem that early raw writing of like a debut novel. I'm excited to read his upcoming horrors because of some of these ridiculously good descriptions.
Wicked.
They get two corpses, bung them in the van, and this is where some of these early gruesome descriptions come in. It's like they have to unwrap the bodies, take them into the temple, and the main kid who we're following, not the rich kid, who also realizes, I'm pretty sure this rich guy I'm sort of hanging out with knew this was going to happen, and I think I was intended to be his corpse.
Wow. Okay.
But so they unwrap these bodies, and his is like clearly been drowned, and just the descriptions of this bloated body are horrifically gruesome. God, and he does it a few times in this book. They take it down to this temple, mystical magic stuff happens, and the bodies start to move. He gets let out into the night and runs away. He's like, screw this. And now he's like, I've been living on the streets, I can't get out. I'm worried they're going to come for me. I don't know what any of this means. We do get a bit of a backstory to this sort of Kali gang. They were known as like the the Kalapa, I'm not going to try to pronounce it or say it because I didn't write any notes. Lazy me, apologies, listener. But they basically used to exist and just rob tourists and rob people. They were just a street gang and they were wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of being wiped out, it sort of forced them to go underground.
Okay, like the Taliban.
Mm-hmm. Exactly like the Taliban. So, you know, he looks at his watch like Robert in the cafe and he's like, this kid is jittery. And he's like, cool story, bro. It's midnight. But what do you want me to do with that? What's that? Don't you understand? The body was M. Daz, the poet he's been looking for. So he's like, okay, again, cool story. I gotta go. I gotta sleep. Goes home and realizes I can't do anything with this. I can't put this in a poetry magazine article.
Yeah.
Like, I'll save it for one day, but they're gonna think I'm nuts. So he goes home, and that's when he's like, "Yo, M. Daz wants to meet you." So, whoa. I gotta sleep. There's a lot of like intermittent days where he gets given the thing he's looking for, and he's like, "No, I gotta eat. I gotta sleep." He's like an idiot or something.
We've got a few other things to do first.
But he, like at this point, he's always trying to get his wife out of town. It's like, "I've got you a flight. Go see your parents." And he'll come home, and it'll be like, "Oh, there was storms. The flight was cancelled. There's not another one till another day." And at one point, when she's going to go home, he's like, "What the F are you doing here? I'm trying to get you out of here." For no real reason, there's no harm on them, but he's just getting, again, the heebie-jeebs are getting worse. And she's like, "Why are you shunning me? You literally woke up in the middle of the night and said, don't get on the plane, spend another few days with me, then we'll go together." He's like, "Did I?" And she's like, "Yeah, like it happened like 4 or 5 hours ago." Even when like there's scenes where she literally is like, "Cool, I left her at the airport, bye," and then it's like she's back at the hotel. Like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, it happens more times than I kind of remember, to the point of like, Jesus Christ, go. But I don't know, like it's happening one time too many, maybe.
Yeah. It's becoming something other than.
And I guess that's the nice hint of like the Gothism and the supernatural. Or like, you know, we've had it many times with King before. Like, the forces are not allowing him to leave. So he goes to meet M. Daz, and he's like, basically, this is where we get like, is any of this real?
Okay.
Like, remember when we talked about Cabin in the Woods, and it was a family who were accosted by like a group of people who were like, it's the end of the world. We turn on the news.
Make a choice.
But it sort of came down to like, there are rational explanations, or there is belief in the supernatural. And so M. Daz is crumbly as hell. But it turns out he had leprosy before he disappeared. So it can kind of explain his appearance. Like that kid and that story are never really brought up again. Like it's something for him to ponder in his mind, but that kid just sort of runs off into the night, I believe. And this is where like, okay, so are you going to listen to these spook stories, and are you going to get spooked out, or are you going to say, no, leprosy exists in this time and this place. It's a little rare, but it's not unknown. For him to get it, when he says he got it, it makes sense that he tried to kill himself and washed up and ended in some sort of colony. And now he's sort of the description the guy gave. If you say he's slowly rehealing-ish, but is like an animated corpse. Yeah. But M. Daz, it's like, here's my poem. He read the poem. He got the poem actually a few days ago, and that's what's kind of giving him nightmares. It's the Song of Kali. It's very like death and destruction, and like pro-Kali, who is Kali itself in this book is pro-destruction and death. And he's like, this is rubbish. We can't even print this poem. Like, this isn't like his old stuff. You know? So he finally meets M. Daz. It's in this darkened room. It's pretty cool.
I can imagine, right, for me, this is where I can see it going. That his kid is going to be wanted as a vessel for the spirit of M. Daz. Well,
you know, I guess I'm coming home for Christmas. I think I can hand you off a copy.
Yeah.
And for our listeners, in about a year and a half, we'll finish this review. No, I'll finish the review, but you know what?
Yeah.
I'll leave the spoilers there. It's not really a spoiler that he meets M. Daz. I think it's building to that for a long time.
Yeah.
But let's just say,
it'd be disappointing if he didn't meet.
If this is Dan Simmons in his raw youth, and this guy is in Calcutta, and just gothic, spooky stuff is going down. There are cults who are, asking for corpses and arguably reanimating corpses. He's there with like a young baby and a very smart wife who's probably the best character of the whole thing. And again, I repeat myself, but the youth of this writer is he going to go dark because he can, and he's not thinking of book sales or movie deals with that unhappy ending.
Also, I quite like the idea of the wife being part of the early gangs.
Oh, no.
Okay. That's why she never gets out of town, because she's never actually really trying to.
She's almost like the voice of rationale.
Right.
She's not necessarily trying to get out of town because she hasn't been through his experiences, and arguably she's acclimatized to India as a whole. So the stuff that instantly put him off and made him grumpy is not casual to her, but expected for her. She kind of grew up there. The book, by the end, it will stay, and the events get crazier, but it will stay. Like in the closing passages, you're like, so is it real or not? You choose to believe.
Okay.
And that's kind of the Song of Kali. It's an odd ending. Like it stays in India for a while, and then it kind of has the last, 20 pages as like a montage. Like it sort of does a skip time. Like it's almost like a lot of the sort of climax is in the afterward. Not necessary for this family. There is a big event for this family here in Calcutta that arguably closes the book. You're like, okay, wow, it's kind of out of left field. It's seemingly, you could argue, disattached. Like, what the F? Like the equivalency of like, there's a, I don't know, I'm using this. Like suddenly there's a rabid Saint Bernard in the hotel. Sort of like, what? Where did this come from?
Right.
And there are setups for it kind of all along. He's like, you have to go home and publish this. And he's like, no, you guys are not nice. The poem's not good. More importantly, you're sort of threatening me. He does get hold of a gun at some point. So if we apply Chekhov's law of the gun, though it's not, it doesn't come like action shootout. There is a scene where he has to run off into the night via jumping into like an open sewer. When I talked about the gruesome depictions of like disgust and grossness, this scene is like, this is now a book that will stick with me, if not for the plot, the characters, just this. What's a book that has grossed you out? The other one is probably The Shining, where the lady gets out of the bathtub, we've talked about before. And there is one which is by, I forget who it's by, Nick Cutter.
Right.
Just a very simple, fun story about a bunch of Boy Scouts on a small island. And there's like an infectious worm that gets into you and it makes you so hungry you can't stop eating. You will pull your hair out and eat your hair. And there's a description of someone watching like a videotape of scientists experimenting with this worm with like a gorilla. And there's just descriptions of what this gorilla, like you can't stop eating. You'll literally bite your fingers off. If you're like, there's a kid who's like trapped in a cupboard and he rips the handle off and just gnaws on a cupboard handle. But this is now this stuff that automatically comes to mind, like the third book in my life, where if someone goes, not necessarily the horror, but what's something that's just gross.
Yeah, that flips your stomach.
Like this scene of him wading waist high to neck high open sewage pipe in India.
Yeah,
always good. It's that thing of like, I'm excited to read his further books. They're not all that, they do go more sci-fi. I have his follow-up called Carrion Comfort, and I'm super excited. Toby, I'm gonna say, I don't know, I say get involved. It's a bit of a beast.
What's it called?
Carrion Comfort.
Carry and comfort.
Like carry on. Like a corpse. I guess it's like a carry-on bird, a corpse-eating bird. I'll send you a link. I say we get on it. It's I don't know. I'm super excited. It's got, like everyone says regarding Song of Kali. Some people really like it. Some people hate it for obvious reasons. But everyone's like, outside of the xenophobia, it's a good start. It's a promising start. Saying that, some people are like, I'll never read another Dan Simmons book, as a result. But
how many has he got? Do you know?
Oh, loads. Yeah, he's quite prolific. Here's something I thought you would like, or dislike. This might go, well, I'm not reading Carrion Comfort. When his wife is telling him the spooky story about her childhood, he says, I can't even get her to like entertain reading one of those trashy Stephen King beach read books. So why is she, as an example of how straight-headed she is and how she doesn't she doesn't even entertain. It's not that she doesn't like it, she doesn't entertain it. That's fine. I feel like it's a cheeky little gag. Like, you know, it's his first book. Maybe he didn't know if it would be published or what, but it was just a nice play. I feel like you've done something similar in a short you sent me once, when it was like, oh, you think you know horror, Mr. King. You think you know horror, Mr. Poe. Like just a cheeky little play on your peers.
Yeah.
Here's what's odd. The reviewers kind of get on board. And I don't think it's that playful. Where is it? Dan Simmons understands terror and what it does to readers. Where Stephen King flinches, Simmons doesn't. Why is he having a little dig at King? Does King flinch? Mm-hmm. And this was like an 85 book. So for me, he was sort of in the prime of writing, knocking out great novels. Mm-hmm. I just thought you'd like that. I do like how he digs into him as a joke, but I don't know why this. I'm sure I read another review somewhere which brings him up. And I wonder if there's that little bit stuck in their mind and they were like, yeah, King is trashy. I don't know. It just spiked out as like, crazy. And that was, I don't know who that was written by actually. But he seems pretty well received by his peers, if not from this book, but just a future writer.
Right, let's try this roulette attempt thing. Pick a number between 1 and 50, Scott, and I'll give you a question.
Let's go with 50. No one ever picks the last number.
Number 50 falls under the category of romance. What songs did you think of while reading this book?
I only know 2 songs that are like traditionally Indian. I don't think they're very difficult of the time. I do not know the name of either of these songs. You know what? The book itself didn't even set the soundtrack for me. It was just, this book's set in India. I know 2 Indian songs. It was just like, it was a very simple thing for me. Mm-hmm. One is the soundtrack for a movie. It's like a song from a movie called like Mehbooba. It's great. I'll put it in our links if I can find it.
Yeah. Good
and the other one is like a rock and roll song. If you've ever seen the movie Ghostworld, it starts off with this very cool, I don't know, like an Indian Elvis inspired Shante Shante. Again, I don't know who it's by or what it is. It's just super catchy and super fun. Neither of them set the tone for this book. I guess if there was a tone to the book, it would just be like movie soundtrack, like sort of dark toning.
Yeah. Give me another number.
What's 1? Let's do the 2 extremes.
What is the significance of the title? Did you find it meaningful? Why or why not? It's pretty self-explanatory.
Oh, well, yeah. But the Song of Kali, obviously, he writes a poem called Kali. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of, there's a nice wrap-up of the book where it's like, it's just more subtle than he would have thought. And it's like, oh, God, it's already out there. Like, he has to stop himself doing something because it's like, this is what they want me to do. You could argue it's almost an anti-climax. It's to try and use an example. I guess this is spoilers for American Gods, but you know, in the end of American Gods, it's building up to this War of the Gods, and it's like, no, like it's like the reverse. The best thing to do is to not have the war. There's a nice touch on this book where it's like he has to does he realize what the song is? And that it's been singing to him maybe this whole time, like that. Yeah. Have you been under its enthrall? And is it the thing that you're doing to try and like stop and counteract the song? Is actually what the song is. I hope that was too much of a spoiler.
No, we'll go for one more question.
You give me a random number.
Number 25. We've done the top ends. We'll do the middle. Were the characters clearly drawn and depicted?
They were. Even the baby was like a really pleasant baby. You know, and I don't know if you had that with your young one, but you know, some people are like, no, it's a good baby.
Yeah.
And I always get the sense from that they're hanging out in other young parent groups, and they don't know what it means to not have the good baby firsthand, but they're kind of saying, thank God my baby doesn't do what these other mothers' babies do.
Yeah.
Thank God it's not that fussy. She does, she does obviously, or he does, the baby does wake up and want feeding, but it's not the sense I was getting is like she doesn't scream the house down for 8 hours in the middle of the night. I can put clothes on her, I can wake her up, I can feed her. She's still a baby. She does fuss, but it's a good baby. This is that baby. It just does all the right things. Yeah. It's never in the way. It's always pleasant. It's never.
Do you feel like you grew attached to all the characters you were meant to grow attached to, so that when the stuff that happens,
really, it does a good enough job with the main staple family. I guess it does paint everyone as a vivid character, but like I said earlier, pretty much everyone they meet is not nice, is a bit dark, is just quite grimy, is physically grimy, or like, you know, just a shady character and undesirable, which is probably does not help the whole xenophobia statement. You could have had a couple of characters in who just were like, you know what I mean, like flatline, like they're not good or bad, like it's just everyone has to be something to him.
I think the fact that what's nice and what I like about what you said is that you've got this central character that's gone to this alien world, and he's experiencing it firsthand, and we're experiencing it through his eyes that are based around, like you say, a well-to-do England,
English countryside,
high tea, and whatever you want on hand with servants and all that sort of thing. So it's definitely much a fish out of water. So you're getting a almost an untainted view of a tainted environment. And then you have, like you pointed out, this one moment which almost goes against everything that you're saying, that people are saying it's xenophobic and all of this. It's just a person's perspective on an environment that's alien to him, because you have this story of like somebody saying, is this reflective of Calcutta? Well, actually this was about London in the 1940s. And you're like, oh, that's good. If it didn't have that, you could just say it is just painting a country in a really bad light. But it's got this flagpole saying, well, hang on a minute, give it a chance and it might get better. So you would recommend this then as a jumping on point for Dan Sims?
I think so, yeah. If you can get over the certain issues that other people have, and if you can't put it down, maybe move on. I can't speak for his other work to say, you know what, it gets better. He's won a lot of awards. He's still going. Some of the concepts of his future books have super excited me. I'm definitely going to read the next one. Like I said, I've got Hyper on somewhere. I'll read it one day, and I'm definitely going to read Carry On Comfort, just because of the little I know of it. And you know, like we've talked about King a lot of times, I just love his younger writing. For me, it has a rawness. You can argue that the writing isn't as good as it is now, sure, but there's something about it, that punk feel. He just does not pull his punches. That just appeals to me. What do you think of Song of Kali? If you've read it at home, racist trash, or it's not so bad, or just misunderstood, or it's just cheap horror. It's nothing to get too upset about either way. Probably
let us know in the comments.
Let us know in the comments. Toby, always a pleasure.
Same. Till next time. Bye.
Hey, we're going to wrap it up around there. I want to thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed. Join us again next episode, and until then, support your local bookstores and have a great day. In lieu of copyright issues and getting to play any of those songs I was talking about, here's little Toby to play us out instead.